beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. As far as the eye can see, there were just people.
It just blew everybody away. We had no idea there would be 250,000 people there.
Mothers with babies and strollers, church women with their church hats and pocketbooks and fancy shoes. And
it was walking down the street like you were moving as part of a glacier.
At that time, the largest assemblage of people in one spot in the history of the United States.
I had no expectation that I was preparing to step into an event that was going to transform my entire life. To be face-to-face and side-by-side with people who had made decisions to go up in the face of the police state atmosphere of the Deep South in order to get change was an overwhelming thought to me.
What I was looking for was the spirit, what Dr. King called the beloved community.
We had never worked on anything of that magnitude. Finally, there was going to be a coalition of the civil rights groups, which is what we had been hoping for many years.
We had a sense that we had slogged through some very terrible things. In a way, there was a huge release on that day.
I think there's sometimes when you know something is going to be historic. I remember it was hot. I remember what I was wearing. I remember singing. And I remember that ocean of people. I've never seen anything like it. I remember the electricity in the air.
A tree of life.
Music had become the soundtrack of the American conscience, and particularly folk music, more than anything. And it was everywhere.
Whatever the perfect storm was that made civil rights, anti-war movement, the music, the Woodstock, it then included all ages.
And when people heard that and they sang that music together, it provided for them a moment where they weren't simply an audience, they were participants.
even if they go along with their daily lives, they can say, I'm a part of this, without being, a card-carrying member of some organization.
Many of the speakers were people whose names were familiar, but you never would get a chance to see them.
It wasn't just that they were sympathetic and very much involved in the ideals of the struggle. It was that that's who they really were. And they were artists and they were superstars. And that you could be both. A powerfully received force, and you can say the right thing. You can have a moral point of view.
I've always resented people who said it was a picnic. It was a day of solidarity. And as a byproduct of that, they saw wonderful things. If you've traveled all night on a bus and you see Harry Belafonte, that's a nice thing. Or if you hear Bobby Dylan sing. But nobody got the same reaction that John Lewis got in his speech or that Dr. King got.
I was aware that this was a time that John Lewis and Dr. King, they were coming into their own.
This is the first time most white people watching this on television had ever seen Dr. King give a full speech. So it was sort of breaking barriers to white people's understanding of the civil rights movement that could not have been done probably in any other way.
Everybody's not equal. Everybody can't vote. Don't have the same shot at raising a family with a future. I resolved at that moment I was going to be active. I was going to be a part of changing the country and raising these demands and lifting my voice with people who were doing everything they could.
It was a procession of church. It was never, ever a march. It was a congregation that was answering the call. Not the speech in itself, but the gathering, that the speech was being given for the gathering.
I couldn't believe it. I've been there for a whole week, and we worked in the office. We've done all these things, and now to see black, white, Hispanic, all religion, being there. It was a very touching moment for me.
For us, in the end, the day was a complete win-win. Kennedys heaved a huge sigh of relief that there was not one act of violence. And to see at the end everybody singing "We Shall Overcome" and all the arms linked. We've said it often, but it's worth saying as often as necessary. There wasn't a dry eye in the house.
I remember the day when the March on Washington was all over. We went back down to the White House. President Kennedy invited us back down. And he stood in the door of the Oval Office and greeted each one of us. He was like a proud, beaming father that everything had gone so well.